Shalom and welcome to Jewish Life, the show about people and issues in Judaism and about some of the secrets you missed out on Hebrew school. Indeed, it is partially a big secret and partially it's not a secret. Everybody knows that Jews have a tendency to become lawyers and judges, and in general they are professionals. On the other hand, very few people know how much Judaism has influenced civil law in civilized countries like the United States in which we live. We've invited Judge Jerome Hornblas, acting Supreme Court Judge of New York State, to be our guest to discuss Torah law and civil law. Judge, welcome. Thank you for coming to the show. One of the main issues that is plaguing our environment today is, of course, crime. Everybody's concerned about crime. And the major debate in our country, or in this particular city, in New York City, is New York State, capital punishment, how we should punish and retaliate or perhaps prevent crime by instituting capital punishment. First of all, what is your feeling on this subject of capital punishment?
Well, crime is clearly a matter of deep concern and interest to nearly everyone in this country because it affects practically every urban area and suburban areas, and it affects the old and young, and the white and black, and rich or poor. Many efforts have been made to try to curtail the amount of crime that we have in the United States. To this point, we haven't been very effective. One of those areas that people say that will be a strong indicator that society is serious about coming to grips with the crime problem is to have capital punishment in every state. Now, as you know, New York State does not have capital punishment because the governor has vetoed a bill that comes before him in every legislative session. There was a time in the United States in the 60s and the early 70s where the United States Supreme Court ruled that capital punishment violated the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States.
Right.
And the Supreme Court said it was cruel and unusual. So there was no one executed or given death sentence in any state in the United States. In the last 15 years or so, many states have reinstituted capital punishment. My basic view is that capital punishment for certain crimes should be on the books. For murder, for kidnapping, I think those are the basic two crimes that I would say that there should be capital punishment. However, I would use capital punishment very sparingly. It should be on the books to deliver a message to society that certain kind of behavior is absolutely non-acceptable. If someone murders someone, even though you may have 27,000 homicides in the United States on an annual basis, one murder is too much. As the Talmud said, he who saves one life saves an entire world.
Right.
And the death of one person is destroying an entire world. No one has a right to take another person's life, regardless of the merits of that. Could be someone says, well, I was poor or impoverished, or as we've seen of late, children killing a mother and father out in California and claiming...
The Mendez brothers.
The Mendez brothers, saying that I was abused, sexually abused and fearful. And here what happens is that the culprit becomes the victim. We see many areas of our society today where people do not want to take blame for what they do. And I think this is endemic in our society. In terms of capital punishment, again, I feel that it should be on the books, it should be reserved for certain crimes, it should be used sparingly. But the message should get across that this kind of action is reprehensible and unacceptable.
Judge, you are, besides for being Supreme Court Justice, you are known as a Talmud Chacham, a scholar. You are a Torah scholar. You're very learned in Torah. I'm sure that studying Torah has influenced your knowledge, your wisdom. First of all, I'd like to ask you, is it true that somebody who went through yeshiva, somebody who studied Talmud in the yeshiva, would be more successful in becoming a lawyer? Is there any truth to that?
Well, I don't know if I could answer that, or in the sense that because I went to yeshiva, I'll be more successful as an attorney. I think modesty would preclude me really from saying that, although I do believe that there is something that a person gets from a Torah education that can never be taken from that individual, can never be removed, and that something is a sense of who we are and where we come from, where we're going. Who we are people created by God. Where we come from is from just a speck, and where we're going is back to the earth, which is to say that a person has to be modest and a person has to be humble. Mm-hmm. And as a judge, there probably is no more important ingredient for being a successful judge than the sense of modesty. To understand that a judge has great power, sometimes awesome power, but a judge has to learn how to use that sparingly, and I think a Torah education helps him with that. I, to this day, get up every morning very early and are part of a daf yomi. That is, I study a page of Talmud early in the morning, right, every day, along with other, perhaps thousands or maybe tens of thousands of Jews throughout America studying.
Which means that every 7 years you complete the entire Talmud.
Every 7 years we complete the entire Talmud, and it's one of the most wonderful accomplishments of modern Jewry, the fact that thousands of men and perhaps women are studying daily the same Talmud, and each page just illuminates aspects of life that are so pertinent material to my own life as a judge and as a father and as a husband.
Okay, with this introduction I'd like to get back after we'll see some video about how legal people are into studying Torah, but I'd like to get back to the subject of capital punishment as you've learned it in the Talmud. First, let's go to the video.
The county courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. What's a nice Chabad rabbi doing in a place like this? Rabbi Yosef Schusterman is carrying a box full of kosher sandwiches for his weekly meeting with some of the country's finest legal minds.
The Torah remains with them forever. The Talmud tells a story. There was once a rabbi who didn't hear a certain law in his youth, and later on, when he got older, he heard it. And he said, it bothers me that I didn't hear it when I was a child. I mean, what difference does it make?
I come to Rabbi Schusterman's study groups every other week for the enjoyment of hearing his interpretation of the Jewish law, because in my profession I'm not that well learned in the Jewish law.
I was interested in becoming involved in it. I learned that there are regular luncheons, and I want to learn more about my religion. I was never bar mitzvah when I was a boy. Now I'm active in my temple, but I still have a serious void that I want to fill, and I think this is a good place to start.
This scene is repeated hundreds of times a day in countries throughout the world as Chabad teaches doctors, lawyers, and businessmen in all walks of life.
Israeli terrorists were dealt with in extra.
Our Yiddishkeit and our education has become more intense than it was before.
Okay, Judge. Now, I've seen that you're not the only one who studies Torah. We have people in Los Angeles and probably all over the world, legal minds who delve into the study of Torah. Torah deals... Okay.
Let me stop you there. As a matter of fact, in downtown New York, once a week we have a Mishnayos class. We have a group of judges and law students who learn once a week. And we've been doing that for a number of years too.
Okay, that's good. Very interesting to know that.
Yeah.
So anybody out there with a legal mind and you want to get Torah with in the legal settings, we can maybe we should give them the address of the class, or
well, I don't know if they could come to the class, but I'd be happy to help them how to start a class.
Very good. That's tremendous. Judge Hornblass is always there, ready to help you study Torah. Let's get back to the subject of crime and punishment in Torah. Capital punishment is there in Torah.
Sure.
We have capital punishment for murder. We also have capital punishment if you desecrate the Sabbath. And this is one of the things that people have against Torah. It is so rigid. It is so fanatic. If I don't keep the Sabbath, I will get death. My God, why death? For that, I mean, I put up a switch on a light on Sabbath, or I cook myself a pot of a kettle of coffee, a pot of tea. I'll get death.
Well, a person that says that really doesn't understand what Torah is about.
Okay.
Torah is not fundamental. The Torah is basically, to compare it to the United States, would be our United States Constitution. Mm-hmm. But one does not know the law just by understanding the United States Constitution. One has to know all the cases that have gone on over the last couple of hundred years, and of course understand the legislative process. That is, laws passed by legislators, both federally in Congress and each state. Similarly with the Torah. Many, many times the Torah says that if a particular act, as you say, the sentence is capital punishment. From murder down to being an informer, down to being a rebellious person, to burglary, to cursing a father and a mother, to, as you said, desecrating the Sabbath. And there were 5 methods of capital punishment in the Torah. So if one were to look at the Torah just fundamentally, one would say, as you said, my God, this is barbaric. This is stringent. This is really a throwback to Neanderthal times. How can we apply it to today? The fact is that we apply it to today by the oral law, by the Talmud. So we have a Talmud in the Talmud called Makot that has a very interesting debate between the rabbis. And just to make the debate very short, it's one rabbi said that a court that executes someone once in every 70 years is a killing court. To that, another rabbi or judge said, no, it's once in every 7 years would be a killing court. And to that, another rabbi said, if I were on the court, no one would ever be executed. And to that, another rabbi responded, well, if he were on the court, no one would ever be executed. Murderers would multiply in Israel. In other words, there you have a debate about really whether capital punishment should be implemented. Beyond that, there are so many rules of evidence within Jewish law that make it almost impossible to convict someone for committing a crime. For instance, and I'll give it for instance as I compare it to American law.
Good.
In Jewish law, circumstantial evidence is never accepted.
Right.
Circumstantial evidence being if I'm charged with a crime and someone did not see me pull the trigger or take the knife and pierce someone's heart, but they saw me leave with a knife that's bloodied, and they connect me to the deceased, and I'm charged with murder. In Jewish law, that evidence is unacceptable.
Right.
In American law, of course, circumstantial evidence is acceptable, and someone can be convicted almost exclusively on circumstantial evidence.
Right.
Beyond that, Rabbi, in Jewish law, you need 2 witnesses to see the matter and who testify. And if there's any contradiction between those 2 witnesses, both of their testimony is absolutely out the window, nullified. Not so in American law. Beyond that, those 2 witnesses have to be of a particular status in the community. And that's not so in America, because people that don't have much of a status, there could be people...
Plea bargaining.
Well, that's another matter, too. But they could be people with a criminal record or are totally immoral or unethical and have, as I said, criminal backgrounds. They could testify, and based on their testimony, they could convict someone.
Or I can make a deal. If I want to get a more lenient sentence, I'll get the other guy convicted based on my testimony.
If there are 2 people charged with a crime,
sure.
If you cooperate. Now, that is absolutely unacceptable in Jewish law. And the last and very important piece of evidence, which is forbidden in Jewish law, is the fact that Jewish law just simply does not accept a confession. Now, in America, we've gone through a whole series of processes over the years about accepting confessions. Years ago, we didn't care if the confession was involuntarily made. Today, it has to be voluntarily made. It can't be coerced psychologically or physically, but it's accepted. All these point to, Rabbi, the fact that the rules of evidence were very technical in Jewish law. And basically, we refer to the Talmud Sanhedrin. So those people in America today who say, the courts today, they just let criminals go. They're too technical.
Right.
They look at the rules of evidence and they throw out a conviction, even though the man is guilty as the day is long. Well, Jewish law says something very similar, that if a person may be guilty, but the evidence cannot be admissible because it's circumstantial evidence, or the witnesses were inconsistent or contradictory, or it was a confession, and there was no other evidence, we have to dismiss the case and let the person go. So the idea is, in jurisprudence of Jewish law as well as American law, is that it's better to acquit a criminal than to
or an alleged criminal,
than to find guilty someone who is innocent.
So somebody has just listened to you originally may have thought that Torah is most fanatic and most stringent. All of a sudden is probably more liberal even than the American system.
Rabbi, in every area of life, from the moment we get up in the morning, whether we're single or married or working or unemployed or a student, whether we're sick or we're healthy, Torah addresses every area of life for this year and every need. And I think it's important for us when we study Torah is not just to look at the fundamentals of it, because then we're blindsided, but to really understand halacha. And halacha, which is Jewish law, means the way to go. It's a fluid word. It means to go. And when something is fluid, it's not constant. It doesn't remain the same. So the Torah law is applicable today as it was 100 years ago and as it will be, with God's help, 500 years from today.
Well, this is terrific. If anyone in the audience really wants to find out and study some more Torah, even at the convenience of their own home, just by picking up the telephone, you can study Torah, you can study the halacha, some of the laws of Torah by dialing 718-363-0450. Grab a pen and paper. We will repeat this number once more before the end of the program. Okay, Judge, this is just so intriguing and so fascinating. Let us address another issue, which is one of those very popular and burning issues here, separation of church and state.
Yeah, well, the separation of church and state is ensured by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, a Bill of Rights. And there again, Judaism and Torah law teaches us not to be absolute about anything. Just as we're not absolute about a human being, we can't say that there's no human being that is all righteous and can't sin. That just isn't true. Right. Nor the flip side of that a person is so sinful and so bad or so criminal that he can't repent, he can't do better. We just don't believe that.
Or, Judge, as we can quote the Talmud, one of the compliments to the Jews in that case was that even the most wicked are full of good deeds, like a pomegranate is full of seeds, which is one of the comments that even the most evil still have a lot of good in them.
Well, I tell you, on that particular instance, to digress for a moment, I've been a judge now for nearly 17 years, and I've sentenced thousands of people to jail for committing, in all those years, looked at a defendant as evil. I'm saddened and disappointed that a human being can commit these kinds of crimes. I'm hurt and to the point of despair that a human being really should have to resort to those kinds of criminal acts. But I've never looked at a person as being any less than I am. I look at each person that comes as being a child of God and created in the image of God, and that person has the capability and the capacity to do better. Many people don't do well because of a whole variety of circumstances which have to do with culture and family background or lack thereof. But everybody could do better. Everyone.
I think this is a good point where we can break away for another video to see the importance of study, the importance of the book, and I'm sure that the results of studying and learning Torah definitely will not lead you into the chambers of Judge Hornblas for any of the above-mentioned crimes. So let us go to the video and then we'll come back.
There is a Yiddish proverb: if you drop gold in books, first pick up the books and then the gold. Gold has its price. Learning is priceless. These presses print thousands of pages a day, and its contents are sent throughout the world. The building which houses these presses is called Yad HaChamisha, the Hand of the Five, named in memory of 5 Chabad students who were slain by a surprise PLO attack as they studied their lessons and whose blood spilled over the pages of their prayer book. The source of all lamplighters is the book, because books are the tools of survival throughout history. In a special wing at 770 is the International Agudas Chabad Library, one of the most coveted Judaica libraries in the world, brought to freedom by the previous Rebbe from war-torn Europe. Under the Rebbe's tutelage, thousands of volumes of manuscripts have been published, opening a priceless treasure of scholarship accumulated by the previous 6 Rebbes, making it available to everyone. Chabad publishes books for everyone, and libraries, especially those for students of all ages, are situated in every Chabad community.
I use this library very often throughout my childhood. I started off with the children's library, reading the books there, and my class teacher, I remember in second grade, took us here, my whole class here, for a trip. We sat and read. And as I got older, I went. I'm not that old. I'm 15 years old. But as the years went on, I advanced to the more adult books. We have people coming in from all over to see the community, and also for research in this library and all different kinds of things. They all come here to observe and perhaps go on to lead such a life. And when they come to our homes and they see, our rituals and our customs and our traditions, they're very taken by it. And we serve our guests like royalty. We try to, because that's a very important aspect in our religion.
Rabbi, I see this film and I'm reminded of all of the work that Chabad and Lubavitch does throughout the world. I've had the pleasure in my lifetime to meet personally with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and of course I, like so many others, wish him a speedy and full recovery. But it is so important for people to go to a library and to learn, and before they reject a heritage of thousands of years, to learn and to know about it, and then make the rejection if they want.
Which leads me, I still want to go back to the church and state question, but as a follow-up to this, is there any truth to this? That, everybody constantly quotes this statistic that amongst Hasidic Jews or religious Jews, Orthodox Jews, the crime rate is much lower or almost none or non-existent. Is there any truth to it? And do you have any explanation for it?
Well, I haven't really made a study nationally or even within New York State, but I think it would be fair to say that people that come from a strong family background, that is, where there's a mother and there's a father and there's a teaching of values of honesty and of hard work and of loyalty, that those are the kinds of people who would be less likely to commit crimes. And I think that is true throughout the United States. And clearly, Hasidic families have mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and large families and libraries
right.
and a work ethic and a desire to be educated. But really, perhaps more transcendent than that is a sense that there's a belongingness that goes back really hundreds and sometimes thousands of years. But getting to your question about church separation of church and state, I really didn't answer it. We were talking about philosophy of human beings, and basically the answer to whether there is church and state is that it shouldn't be a wall, in my judgment. The Constitution protects somebody from being as religious as one wants to be. One could walk in the street wearing a tallis or tefillin, and no one could object to that. At the same time, the government cannot impose any religious standards on an individual. So in America, we have an opportunity to be as free as we want religiously, and the government has a duty to give us that kind of freedom. And I don't believe there should be a wall. For instance, every Christmas time or Hanukkah time, there's always a debate about a Hanukkah menorah and a Christmas creche on public property. People could disagree about that, but clearly if one comes in and say, well, absolutely, there should never be a Hanukkah menorah or a Christmas decoration on public grounds, I think is mistaken. It depends on the locality, and I'm for, frankly, people getting to learn about each other. I think like a film like Schindler's List is important for the world to see. I think it's extremely crucial for people to know each other. And you didn't ask me the question.
As is this show too. That's an opportunity for people to learn.
I think you deserve a tremendous commendation for putting on a show like this. I know that it's not an easy proposition. I'm sure it's costly to let people learn. One of the things I'm most disturbed about is that there seems to be a confrontation in cities between Jewish people and some of the African American people that live there, and that's being fanned by hate mongers like a Farrakhan and so on. And I, a couple of years ago, got together with some of my colleagues from the African American community, and we've started a group, we call it Blacks and Jews in Conversation, and we just do that. We learn from each other, we educate each other, and we're developing various projects with each other to demonstrate to the world that people don't have to fight and hate. They could really begin to be kind to each other and
Judge,
civil.
that should be beautiful, so that people should not be intimidated by walking in to a black jury or an all-white jury or a white judge or a black judge or a Jewish judge. There should be no such thing, which leads me to my next question. Do you believe in the need for a Jewish seat on the Supreme Court?
Well, we've had some very illustrious people as judges in the Supreme Court who are of the Jewish faith. Justice Brandeis and Justice Cardozo and Justice Arthur Goldberg. And we haven't had one for about 25 years, but President Clinton appointed Justice Ruth Brady Ginsburg, who is from Brooklyn, and whom I've met on a number of occasions to be on the Supreme Court. I think each group in the United States should be represented in the highest court of the land. I think that group, by having representation, feels good, feels better, feels a part of America, and there's no reason why someone from the Jewish community should not be in the Supreme Court. However, it should be that that person in the Supreme Court is not afraid of his background or her background, and is proud of it, and is imbued with a tradition. And I would love to see someone in the Supreme Court who has a knowledge of Torah on the Supreme Court. I'm not too sure of the knowledge that Justice Ginsburg brings to her position, but we've had some experiences with judges on courts who are almost ignorant of Jewish thought and of Jewish values.
That is a shame.
And that affects them negatively as judges.
At this point, maybe we can remind our viewers again, if you want to fill in on your study of Torah, over the phone, and then obviously you can call your local rabbi, your local Chabad center. Do call 718-363-0450. You can study Jewish law on the phone. Any closing remarks, Judge? We have like less than a minute.
Well, I'm honored, frankly, and blessed by the opportunity to live in America. Honored by the opportunity to serve the people as a judge. I try to be fair and honorable and knowledgeable about what I do. My background in Jewish life, studying yeshiva for many, many years and continuing my studies today and trying to do as mitzvot, good deeds, I think helps me be a more effective judge. And I just am grateful for the opportunity in America to be able to study Torah and to fulfill myself in the secular world and bridging that gap. And America is a great country.
And as my head counselor used to tell me in camp, always, learning never ends, learning never ends. Do study and do learn. And in my fascination with what I heard from you today, and I'm sure the audience was fascinated, I'd like to invite you to come again once more, and we will continue this discussion. And to you, all our viewers, I want to wish you the traditional bracha v'atzlacha and all the best.
Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach.